After the bleak north, everything in the Midlands seemed warm, rich and ripe. The mutton was fat, the cakes full of eggs, and in September we made wonderful wines and jams and rich preserves.
By comparison with life in Yorkshire, this village must have seemed like a living larder, really. There's just so much food here, and so much of it. Just behind there were the pigsties. That's where Dorothy's pigs lived, and they must have eaten these pears off this tree above me.
Like sensible, thrifty country people, the Hartleys wasted nothing when their pig was killed, including his head.
Follow the cut all the way down the middle and split the head into 2 pieces.
I'm helping pig keeper Tom Beebe to make a kind of pâté called brawn in Dorothy's kitchen and using her own recipe.
That might be better.
Ooh!
Did you feel that against the bone?
I shouldn't have thought about cutting someone's leg off. I think you're going to have to give a demo.
Right, I'll give it a try. Going a little bit off course. But
Yeah, it's not going down the middle, is it?
it should be okay, though. It's all going to end up in the same place.
That's it. Yay! Well done. Look at that.
I think we've got...
Ooh, look at his teeth. Look at his brain.
This bowl here, we're going to put all the nasty bits in, like tongue, brain, eyeballs, things like that.
We've got to get the eye out next.
The best way to do that is if you feel around, you can sort of feel an eye cavity around the bone, like there. And the best
Oh, he's opened his little eyelid.
Put the knife in and follow the bone all the way around and try and cut underneath the eyeball, so you take everything, the eyelid and everything out from underneath.
Oh my goodness, that is so frightening and horrible.
There we are, very good.
Oh, this is a curious mixture of disgusting and wonderful. This seems like a really horrible, alien, strange experience. But I suppose that as modern people, we're the odd ones out, really. We're the ones who aren't familiar. Ooh, there's his eye with this. But for centuries, people would have just been used to doing this every autumn.
Oh, they would have been, yeah. I think we've become quite detached in recent years from how our food is prepared, made, and actually where it comes from.
Killing the pig in the autumn, everybody did it.
Yes, a pig in a day, everyone would club together and they'd have a pig processed in a day. They do all the brawn, they do all the butchery, make sausages, cure bacon. Everyone would club together and get it done really quite quickly.
So we boiled it for a couple of hours and then we let it cool down. And now we're picking off all the meaty bits. I am a natural scavenger. There's something brilliant about finding something that others have overlooked.
Yeah.
And then we're going to pour in that leftover stock, and then as it cools, it will form a solid jelly. And we'll be able to make it into slices.
Yes.
Then eat it with mustard. Very important. Must be with mustard. That's what Dorothy says. So I'm pouring in the stock. How long do we have to leave it?
I'd want to leave it in a cool place overnight for it to set firmly, and then it'd be something nice to have for lunch tomorrow.
It has set into a proper glistening jelly, hasn't it?
It has, yes. For you?
Now, I'm really torn. I'm actually quite hungry. It smells nice. That's all good.
It appears.
But what's flashing into my mind is cutting out the pig's eye with the knife.
Really?
Yeah.
I think the best thing to do is give it a try and see what it ends up like. That's not bad. The mustard certainly helped. I quite like that.
I've overdone the English mustard. You're wolfing it down here.
That's quite nice. I'm quite enjoying it.
I'm sorry, I don't like it.
That's all right.
I'm sorry to say, I think it's really disgusting. I've done my best to try and like it. Why doesn't anybody eat brawn these days?
There are reasons. It tastes awful.
Dorothy left the rectory in the early 1920s and moved to London. The capital gave her room to develop her talents as an artist and writer. She gave art lessons at Regent Street Polytechnic, but spent her spare time in the British Museum. She was exploring the whole world of medieval England. I've come to meet the food writer and journalist Adrian Bailey, who met Dorothy in the late 1960s. I'm hoping he can shed some light on her fascination with medieval history.
Dorothy's father was a Chaucerian, and that was very likely where Dorothy's interest in the medieval world and the 14th century came from.
What was she really like?
She was very hospitable, quite funny, very elegant, in fact. She used to write to me and she would sign it, "Yours truly, D. Hartley, Miss," in brackets, just to establish the fact that here was a spinster you don't mess around with. She was extraordinary.
But some of these papers are old love letters. They contain clues about one quite serious relationship with a man called Mickey. He, though, was a heavy-drinking, elusive loner who worked as a ranger in Africa. Marriage was never on the cards and he died young.
He says, "I will never settle now. And the next time I go home back to England, I shall wander all over the British Isles with a toothbrush."
Yeah, which is what she would do.
Which is what she would do, so they're two of a type, really.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. I think that deep down in her heart, she didn't really want to be married. She didn't have time for a domestic life. She fought off proposals. There was one, Mr. Barham. He proposed to her by letter, and she replied with a long discourse on Viking burial customs and said, "That'll see him off."
She put him off with the
She put him
Viking
off
burial
with it, yes.
customs. That's one way of
That
doing
was
it.
typical of her. I rang her one day and she picked up the phone and, without asking who it was, said, "Can't talk to you now, I'm in the 14th century," and put the phone down. Could have been anybody. But that was her. She was like that. Somebody that had a great love for what she did, and she wanted to convey that to her readers, and greatly succeeded, because here we have Food in England.
What's your opinion of the importance of this book?
It is the product of a lifetime's experience. It is a history book. It isn't a cookery book. And she goes back in history to the Victorian period and then back through to the ending up at in the Tudor world, which she loved.
Dorothy's engagement with history bore fruit in 1925 when she published her first book, Life and Work of the Peoples of England. While researching it, she came across a writer who was to have a profound influence on her life. A Tudor farmer and poet called Thomas Tusser.
Thomas Tusser keeps cropping up in Food in England. Dorothy was clearly very interested in him. He spent his life in 16th century Suffolk and she tracked him down there. This photo shows her standing up to her ankles in a bog, and it says on the back, "Me on Tusser's Marsh." Well, I think I need to visit Tusser's Marsh and Tusser's landscape to see what they might tell us about Dorothy herself.
This is the spot, in what's known today as Constable Country, where Thomas Tusser's house once stood. He was born in Rivenhall in Essex in about 1524. 100 Good Points of Husbandry is his rhyming book about agriculture.